Good afternoon, everyone. Does this work?
Is it working?
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Asar Mohammed. I'm the head of operations for IOM in South Sudan. As you can see from the title of presentation, Bridging Traditional Knowledge and Science for Enhanced Flood Protection in Conflict-Affected Communities of South Sudan. Before we will go on in setting the stage, let me also introduce a few key stakeholders who have joined us for this presentation from South Sudan and who have been instrumental in taking this project forward. The Undersecretary of Ministry of Water Irrigation, Mr. Acher Mainid, DG Planning, Alex Leakey, Director of Hydrology, Charles Koboji, Mr. Will Carlson from the Netherlands Embassy, who's also the advisor for the Netherlands Embassy, my dear colleague Wafa, who will be doing the presentation and taking forward. So the way we have set it up is, and our colleagues from the Netherlands Foreign Embassy. Thank you. The way we have set up the presentation today is I'm going to set the stage, then I'm going to hand over to my colleague Wafa here to taking us through the presentation. And after that, we will have a Q&A session, and we will have a small panel to answer any questions that may arise or that you would like to ask further, or if you would like to have your suggestions on how to replicate these kind of programs and how to take them forward.
It's with you.
It's okay. So, I think technology sometimes, yes, it's okay.
Oh,
Okay, so let me find the clicker. So, South Sudan, or Bor Flood Risk Mitigation Project, the main overall objective of this project was to support the flood-affected IDPs, returnees, and the residents in the greater pre-Bor area by strengthening their resilience and adopting better flood mitigation and management processes and improve the disaster risk reduction strategies. South Sudan is the youngest country in the world, which got independence around 2011 with a approximate population of 12 million. It is amongst the least prepared climate disaster, and it's highly vulnerable. If I'm not wrong, it is somewhere around the fourth most vulnerable country in the world. The rainfall decline since 1970 is 20%, and the major floods that we are talking about and where the project came in started somewhere at the end of 2019 and still continues to affect. So this is the overall, if you can see the impact across the map in South Sudan. And the project that we are talking about today is somewhere around east of the country. It's called Bor. It is within the Jonglei state. Let me stop here and hand over the presentation to my colleague, Wafa.
okay. Yeah. Today I will be telling you a small story about a big project with a very big impact that happened to. Okay, I need to figure out how this works. Yeah, these 101,000 people in 2019, 2020, and 2021, they were totally underwater, which led them to leave their houses, leave their areas, and displace somewhere. Because water was everywhere, this kind of project was initiated, yeah? When we think about disaster risk management and flood mitigation, we always think of what kind of construction we want to do. For this project, we started the other way around. We started with what does the community know, how they are living, and how can we build on it. So when you look at something like this, and really think of our session title. This is one of the projects where the donor, government, community, and humanitarian sector came together. This is why we call a community-based project. Community-based project is very essential in South Sudan because we always think of when we don't have any scientific data, how can we start? And how can we exit? And what do we do in between? So this project basically focused on 3 main outcomes. The first outcome was the knowledge. The second outcome was about community-based disaster risk management and early warning. And then, of course, you always need to make it grow with some infrastructure, because we can build the capacity of people as much as we want, but we cannot leave them without an actual physical infrastructure where they can use for the next 50 to 100 years. Basically, the approach that we did, we started with the feasibility study and assessment. This is where we did scientific programming. We did a hydrological, environmental, and socioeconomic study that covered the whole municipality of Bor. And of course, we did the environmental and social impact assessment on the people who are living there and what kind of infrastructure we want to put. Later on, we sat with these communities. We made sure that they are on board with the data, with their knowledge, and we established something we called community-based disaster risk management committees. These committees played a crucial part within the project initiation, implementation, and now, as we speak today, of the exit of the project. And then we looked on the infrastructure, but not only what we're constructing today, but then how are people going to take it on in terms of operation and maintenance. This is just to show you what a bottom-top projects are done. We have several stakeholders, but we started with communities, we went to the state government, and then, of course, with the support of national government in South Sudan. I talked a lot about communities. Why I'm focusing on communities? Because all the early warning that we did was from the community. So my key message for you today is that the community knowledge is not a fallback. It's what you need to take to build on. Whatever the communities are doing in several areas around the world is what is the foundation that we're building all of our projects on. And why I'm saying this? Because taking an example of Bor community always foresaw the flooding, but unfortunately they were unhurt. How did they see the flooding? Basically, the community in Bor know the animal migration patterns. They know the soil shifts and the seasonal signs. Because they've been living in this area, they know what is exactly happening every rainy season. They managed to do their evacuation routes. They did their own dikes. And their responses were actually the diagnosis for us to start, and it was actually one of our design tools. We took this knowledge later on, and we added the scientific part of it. So we did LiDAR studies and DTMs. We did a full flood model for the area to understand the hydrology, to understand where are the choke points. And we took this scientific data that we collected and supported it with communities' testimonies. Of course, after you take the scientific data, you have to do something with it. The something we did with it is basically the construction and the engineering part of it. So this is where we helped the 101,000 people with culverts. And when we say culverts in South Sudan, there is always two parts of culverts. There is the culverts that are supporting the natural drainage, which is due to the high intensity rainfalls that keeps happening every rainy season. And of course, the backflow from the river. Because Bor, located in South Sudan, all the town is on the River Nile. So it's not only the rainfall that they are suffering from. They are suffering from the high levels of water rising every season. And it's not only from South Sudan, even with the neighboring countries. After the construction, we always think of what's next. As Netherlands Embassy, as IOM, we cannot do it alone. Yeah? So we always think of what is the operation and maintenance after exiting. And this is something we really focused on this project. The operation and maintenance, basically, we always divide it into several components. We think about the materials used, we think about the manpower, transportation, what kind of consumables, the fleet that is needed, because it's not always manual work, and then what is the monitoring and evaluation and external support. We always try to hand over the operation and maintenance to the community, but we always ask for a government support and interventions. Part of the context in Bor is, it's a very interesting area. I wish all of you someday go visit. But because it's very interesting, it's naturally very nice, we thought about the gray infrastructure. We never wanted to build something that will affect the ecology of the area, so we always thought about natural-based solution. And when we talk about natural-based solution, we thought about the aftermath of what we did and how we do erosion control specifically, but with what is available in the community. So one part of it was the tree plantation for erosion control. Now I will not talk about water anymore, but I will tell you what will happen beyond water. So in South Sudan, the flooding is not only an issue of water. The flooding and the climate change issues is actually a conflict trigger. And this is something, especially I have the government of South Sudan sitting here, they can vouch to what I'm saying. When people displaced, the land issue arises a lot. And the vulnerability of the people who are displacing arises a lot. If I'm being displaced from my area today, I have to go to another community, and I will see, are they welcoming or not? I'm going to be displaced on their land. So what kind of support do I need? So we always think about the housing, land, and property safeguard. We think about the dispute resolutions. And how do we, as government, as a humanitarian, as donors, help people throughout these emergencies? So we always need to think about what happens after flooding. It's not about a small area that is flooded today. It's what is happening to the people, how they are moving, what is the term climate-induced migration means. Yeah? I talked about 3 outcomes. One of them was focused on capacity building. On capacity building, this is where we took all the pilots we're working on and we transferred it to policy. We started with the educational sector, where we developed, alongside the government, we developed a postgraduate diploma on disaster risk management and sustainable development. And this is the first in South Sudan, where we supported around 45 students with curriculum. We trained professors on advanced teaching methodologies. These students are graduating in a month, and they will take this knowledge and start building on it throughout all projects that are related to disaster risk management. I talked about community, 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 and I will always talk about community. The role of the community was very essential for us. Community helped us with the awareness raising. The community-based disaster risk management committees helped us with the decision making, helped us with reaching out to government, reaching out to donors. It was a two-way communication between us and the community of Bor. Whenever there was something that we did not know, they were the ones who are telling us. Back in 60 years ago, this is how the area looked like. In 50 years, I'm telling you, this is what will happen. Because the community knowledge was very essential. Because let's face it, when we arrived to Bor, we did not have any scientific data to explain what's happening in the area. We just arrived to an area that was fully underwater. So the only people who helped us is that community that is living there and displacing from there every rainy season. And now, by the end of this project, we managed to draft the National Disaster Risk Management Policy with the help of the government and, of course, the help of the Dutch expertise. And I will give you just one moment to look at the lessons learned from this. Yeah? Bor's story is a story that might be replicated in every climate fragile area in the world. The model truly integrated how we take the traditional knowledge, the scientific data, put them together, and help. And this can be like an example for not only South Sudan, this can be done throughout Africa and beyond. So the take-home lessons, I try to divide them based on interest, yeah? So as a donor, donors, and this is what we learned, donors need to invest in adaptive, multi-phase flood resilience programming. For government, the lessons learned is that the traditional knowledge needs to be a legitimate input into national policies. For any practitioner, my advice is basically you design with communities, not for them. So you sit with the community and you start your design. Even for academic researchers, you need to put the engineers, the historians, the sociologists together. Don't sit the engineers alone designing fancy culverts without talking to the historians, yeah? Just make sure to sit everyone together. And we need to really think about the cross-border integration. When we talk about flooding, when we talk about climate change, disasters, we're not looking at one country. Flooding doesn't stop at the border of South Sudan and return, yeah? It will go from South Sudan to the neighboring country and from the neighboring country to another neighboring country. So if we know that climate changes are affecting the whole world, why we're not sitting all together and building a solution together, yeah? And I hope that was short and not very hectic. I will be here to answer all of your questions alongside my colleagues. I will invite Asar back again on stage. I will invite Mr. Charles from Ministry of Water and Irrigation. And I will invite Professor Majok from Dr. John Garang University. While we answer your questions, we will have some questions for you as well, because it's not that you guys need to listen to us, we also need to listen to you. So we have a couple of topics that we will be challenging you on. And in the background, you will see a lot of photos from the project that I was talking about. Yeah. I'll hand over to the first question, comment.
Thank you. Very nice display, very nice story. I've been close to it, so I know much about it too, I suppose, but not half as much as you do, Wafa. But I have a question though. I think in your second slide you showed, and you made an expression saying that the communities knew that the floods were coming, but were not heard. You have implemented an important program for the region, for the area. So how did you work with the community that their voice is being heard now?
Okay. Thank you. Well, to start with, the reason we invested into Bor. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. The reason we invested in Bor is basically of the efforts that were already put in by the community. And that's where the linkage for the project started. So it started well beyond just the traditional humanitarian work that was going on in Bor. So when the flood hit, the communities were already saying that if the flood levels in Juba and in the nearby areas is that high, they will be hit. And they're not protected. However, we saw a resilient community working with whatever meager resources. And I must say, everybody was contributing. It was not within people just inside Bor, but people outside South Sudan even contributing, and that's the diaspora, South Sudanese diaspora contributing. And from there onwards, we worked with them during the response time, building the temporary infrastructure or dikes in the area. And as we move forward, we divided them into committees, as Wafa mentioned earlier, and these committees were presented with the scientific data that was collected in the first phase of the project. And there, the shortlisting was done of the infrastructure. And they were asked what would be the most beneficial infrastructure in their opinion to go forward. Here, one caveat, somebody will ask, sometimes community might not understand a scientific data set that has been presented. So we tried, and we are very lucky. We had a very good research team on hand, and who were quite keen in having as many stakeholder coordination and consultations to ensure that they understand the impact of different infrastructure that they might choose. So what are the impacts on the downstream communities that it can bring if we choose one over another? I hope this answers your question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Congratulations for the great achievement, and this is really impressive. I'm from Egypt, so very similar culture. So my question would be, what was your strategy for building stakeholder trust, and what kind of platform did you establish to maintain the conversation between the different stakeholders? Thank you.
I will talk about the platforms, but first I will hand over to our main stakeholder, the government of South Sudan, to let them answer on how did we approach them and what kind of work we did with them. Trust.
Yeah, thank you very much once again. I'm Koboji Charles, and thank you for posing this question. You know, we know that, collaboration in this aspect of tackling flood is key. So the first respondent to any disaster are the communities, first of all. Of course, disasters like this can overwhelm, their coping mechanisms and other things. So it is from this identification of the issue that comes to the national ministries, and we talk about the disasters, then collaboratively together with donors and our implementing partners, we came together to discuss how to sort out, this, come up with the solution. I remember during the onset of, this flooding, it was described as firefighting. Really, it was very difficult how to go about it. I was involved with the asset in the flood when Bor was really taken over, I think 2020. So we went on the site. Truly, the whole issue was people could not manage because it was beyond their coping mechanisms. So coming together and having our voices heard, brought in donor communities, thanks to the Dutch government, to bring some money on how to approach such a disaster. So because we do not need really all the time to be responsive. We need to build, this kind of resilience. So that collaboration really brought us all together, ringing the bell, raising the alarm, and then now everybody hearing about it, and we come together thanks to blending the traditional knowledge with science. And one thing I must bring also to the audience is that, traditional knowledge is very good, but as you know, it's, if not documented, it becomes a challenge. I think this is what our colleagues found out, the IOM. The people who were to tell the stories may no longer be there now. So the use of blending knowledge, it's really very key. We document this so that we can refer to it. I know from questions, from interviews, you are able to get, some stories about it. But if it is not documented, and we would not get, those elderly people, we would have missed a lot of, information. So this is really a very key project, which blending that knowledge and then bringing the science together will really be very great. So thank you very much.
You allow me to comment as well. So part of this project, I think this is okay. Yeah, part of this project really worked on government capacity building. So we were trying to put all stakeholders together, but it wasn't as simple as let's start with a committee that have everyone in the same room all the time, yeah? So there was levels of capacity building and levels of government engagement that we did. So I'll start from bottom up, yeah? So we did the community-based disaster risk management committees, and these are 12 people per plot within the municipality area, yeah? And then we went a little bit up, and then we did what we call county-based disaster risk management committee. And then we went a bit up and did state disaster risk management council, which was chaired by the governor, yeah? And then we went a bit up, and then we did project steering committee, which was managed at national level with the 3 main ministries, which is Ministry of Water, Ministry of Environment, and Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Disaster Risk Management. So all of these together, of course, there was a frequency of how these committees set, when do they set, when do they talk, and when do they talk to each other, yeah? So, for example, the State Disaster Risk Management Council was solely focused on policy update and development, yeah? The State Disaster Risk Management Council will say, in my state, this is the scenario. This is what disasters I'm facing, and these are the policies that I already have in hand. And let me update these and take them at national level. So national level role was to roll out throughout South Sudan, yeah? Same with community. The community-based disaster risk management committees will sit together, will come up with, for example, their evacuation route or their disaster risk management plan at a community level or a plot level, or what we call in Bor quarter council level. Yeah, we took all of these plans and we went to the municipality and we said, 1, 2, 3 is the community plan. What can you support with? And then we took it to the other humanitarian partners and said, these are the evacuation routes. This is what people are planning to do in terms of flooding. How can we support them? And the same with the other committee and the other council. So we managed to have all of these forums in place. And then when I say we, I say us, the government, of course, yeah? So these committees came together whenever it was needed and regularly. So for example, at national level, we have a flood task force that covers the whole of South Sudan. At state level, we have a high-level committee of flood crisis management where we discuss the resources given by humanitarians, the resources given by the community, and how we best use them at state level. I hope this answers your question. Yeah. Next question. There was someone up there. I saw a hand. No? You.
Thank you. I work for the Dutch Regional Water Authority, and I was really interested in making from pilots policy, and maybe you already talked about a little bit about it just yet. But I was thinking in the Netherlands we have also very strict
Jurisdictions.
Juridische context with laws. How would you recommend creating from small local traditional pilot to make it to scale it up to a national policy while there's already rigid laws in place?
You want to take it, or should I take it? Or Charles, you want to take it?
Okay. Okay. So as I said, South Sudan just got independence in 2011. The Dutch have a history of water management. So it will take a bit more time in South Sudan, but the whole idea was building the pyramid from bottom up. And the idea is, as the traditional knowledge gets into these projects and supports in the policy making, it is the hybrid system of governance where community and the government officials shares responsibility of water governance on the ground. But it will take time. It's an evolutionary process, and the whole governance structure in South Sudan is very young and still taking its time to, have real strength of implementation the laws. So it will take a bit more time. But I can assure you, water is a subject that people in South Sudan are very much interested because they are affected on a regular basis by that. So they have and they will continue to affect the policy making and the laws and implementation around water in South Sudan. Sorry if it was not a very elaborate answer.
Yeah, I will.
Charles, please.
Yeah, to add on, really, this project, shapes our policies. The Ministry of Water Resources, as of now, developed its water policy in 2007, in which most of this, this traditional knowledge have been missed out, thanks to the support, technical support from the Dutch. It is now under review, and I think such a project will really inform how we can incorporate, interventions or taking the traditional knowledge into account. So these are some of the findings that need to be incorporated so that we can scale it up, because why I say so, most of our cities, most of our towns, major towns are along the rivers, and they face similar challenges like Bor, from Nimule up to Reng, from Nasir up to Wau, all our cities are along the rivers, as suggested by civilizations. So if we cannot borrow from this example and put it into a policy, then we will not have done any other job. But it has really come at the right time when we are already updating our water policy and other regulatory frameworks to come. So that's how it will inform us. Thank you.
Yeah. One other thing to think about, because we're talking about the youngest country in the world, the rules and regulations are there, but not as rigid as when you see in another place in the world. Because the learning curve in South Sudan is always changing. There is a lot we still don't know about flooding situation, a lot about disaster management. So if you noticed in my slide, I didn't even say we finalized the National Disaster Risk Management Policy. We're still at the drafting stage because there is a lot that we're learning every day, every rainy season, even every dry season. We're still learning and building on it. So South Sudan is a perfect model when you want to think about, let's get the community in, because we don't have anything set in stone yet. For other countries, like even for my home country, everything is set in stone. Even if we want to invite the community now, it's going to be a challenge. But for South Sudan, this is not the case. We're still developing, and it's easier. Thank you. Next question. After.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for all the explanations. I was a bit curious about the committees. I was wondering if all the committees are still active, and then what were the challenges that you faced while building all those committees? Because there are many committees, so I imagine that it was quite difficult at some point, maybe.
Yeah.
And also, what actions have you taken to ensure the sustainability of these committees looking forward? Thank you.
Okay. We have a lot of committees, yes, but with different roles. So when we talk about the State Disaster Risk Management Council, these are government officials. They need to sit together every quarter. They need to discuss what's happening and see which policies they need to look at or update. When we talk about community-based, for community-based, they were not easy to form, but very interesting to work with, because at Community-Based Disaster Risk Management Council, they still, till today, they still have some challenges. Challenges in terms of movement, challenges in terms of lack of resources, but the Community-Based Disaster Risk Management Council are taking over the operation and maintenance of the infrastructure, are taking over of training communities within themselves on how to do flood mitigations at shelter level. And when we say shelter level in South Sudan, it's a small tukul. Yeah. They are teaching their friends and family how to elevate their shelters, what are the early warning signs. So they are still very active. The government committees are still very active. We had some challenges a lot at government level because of the high turnover of the positions, but we ensured that with every new government bodies that keeps on changing, we still do the same. We still build the capacity. We had something called community-based disaster risk management training that was offered by a specialist from IOM, where we managed to train everyone, including government bodies, main actors, and communities. And whenever we have any changes, we still do the same. Yeah? Their roles after exiting is the same as what we're doing now. Yeah? Because since the start of this project, all of these committees were not run by IOM or not run by the embassy. They run themselves. We only provide a background support, but when these committees set what topics they need to discuss, this was handed over to them from day one. Yeah? We just provided support in the background. So the hope is whenever there is a need, they still sit together, discuss the same way they are doing now. Thank you. Next question. Go ahead. Oh, sorry, Wim. I think Wim first and then. Okay. No, to him, it's fine.
It was very, very interesting. And the point is like, is the committee allowed to handle finance when it comes to management and also monitoring? Like, is there any resource allocation for the committees?
Oh, resource allocation.
Yeah, to manage the funds, to maintain it. Because in most of the cases of like disaster mitigations, the participation of the community or the investment of the community is strong in the initial periods, but it goes down over the period of time and goes very down when it comes to maintenance and monitoring. How far they are enabled to handle finance, since the institution is very new, so it's very possible. So how this thought has been put over?
Thank you.
Thank you. And it's a very good segue between the last question and this one. Okay, so the communities that we are talking about, although we have given them a name just for the clarity of the purpose within the project, but remember, they have come together much before than when we came to the town or to the play. So whether it's the government or the communities, they are together there because of the very imminent threat of not working on this. So if they do not work together, they will face the consequences. So they have been together and they will continue to stay together even after the life cycle of the project. That's one. Two, in terms of resources, we have seen, if I remember correctly, back in 2020, they themselves had collected somewhere around $250,000 for the response, themselves. And they manage that fund on their own. What are we doing now? So one, we'd give them a skill set or training in terms of O&M with the new infrastructure and what they need to do. But at the same time, we have provided resources both to the municipality and other materials which might be required for an acute flood situation. We are not allocating at this point of time. As we go into the second phase of this project, we have not allocated any additional funds for the committees to take care, because we know they're quite capable of fundraising within themselves to do the necessary work. Thank you.
Yeah. One?
Thank you very much for your good explanations. Just a question about the training, the postgraduate training classes and institutions that you have established. What is the future of those that are actually that have graduated from the course? There is now one group, I suppose, that is actually looking for jobs. Yeah. What about the jobs and what about the salaries for the jobs? Can you tell us something about it?
Professor.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think this is a good question. I was almost going to escape without answering a question because if you did not touch a place on trainings. Yeah, actually to speak, we know very well that the postgraduate program, which we are running at John Garang University, is a kind of a backup and a withdrawal strategy to the program. Because no matter how much resources you put into the project, every project has got a timeline. It will start and it will end someday. So we are foreseeing that in the future, there would be no technical knowledge and expertise to actually carry on the foundation that is being built. So that's why we decided that as a follow-up to the program, we will definitely train a number of of specialists from various backgrounds. Some of them are engineers, and instead of them, they would have actually been doing their own construction, but now we integrating the knowledge of disaster risk management, especially with flood management. Others are economists, others are agriculturalists, others are environmentalists, and we bring them into the common knowledge that there's a problem that's existing in which you are at the front line to solve. So the major plan for the future for this is that the university has already developed a follow-up program to the postgraduate that is being funded by the project, that the university is now in the process of wanting to recruit more specialists to, when these people go to the field, there would be another group that will be trained, and they will also go to the front line to support their major colleague who will start the program. So that is how this thing is being planned. And I want to emphasize that this knowledge is not only the knowledge of postgraduate program that is helping here. The real knowledge of the community that Wafa talked about is already existing. Like in our profiles, we know that traditionally before we bring in any issue of disaster risk management, there used to be a local knowledge which we have actually put in our database, whereby when communities see a certain aspect, either hydrological or something that is change in the environment or a behavior of the animals, and then the community knows what is coming next. So they have this. So with all this, we were able to bridge this knowledge all together in the sense that the communities, together with the people who are being trained, they will continue to work forward in order to improve the flood resilience. I think this is what I want to say on the side of training. So it is not only the postgraduate program, but only the local people, community-based disaster risk people are also interacting with these students in order to see, because these students might lack, they only have the knowledge, some of them might lack the experience of living there. And by getting this knowledge, then from there now they will be able to move. Thank you.
Thank you too.
Yeah, thank you very much as well, of course. I'm Inge de Boer from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Netherlands. I was just wondering when you mentioned as well of course, the transboundary aspect of water, of course. Is there already knowledge exchange happening? Is it foreseen? Could you maybe elaborate a little bit on that?
This is a question for the government, so the government is here to answer.
Yeah, thank you very much. You know, South Sudan is really almost 100% in the Nile Basin. So when we talk of transboundary, maybe with neighboring countries, of course, the water does not start from South Sudan. Of course, it starts from the equatorial lakes, from the Ethiopian highland, and also continues flowing. But also within, the country, we also consider a transboundary aspect because, the country is divided into states. We have about 10 states plus 3 administrative areas. So this water also is crossing, this boundary of this state. So in essence, it is also transboundary just within, the country. So what we are looking at is, the information, say, for example, now, if we are to develop an early warning system for informing, actions in Bor, it may not necessarily be, monitoring at Bor. So a good example is currently what we do is, we give alert levels for, measurements in Mangala, which is about 100 kilometers away, so that it gives, that good luck time for people to prepare. So in terms of the data sharing or information sharing, we have been doing it within ourselves, alerting, people downstream of every irrigation station that look, the water levels 100 kilometers upstream today, it has risen. In the next maybe 2-3 days, it may reach your area, so be prepared. So this is how we do it internally, and it's ongoing now. During this flood season, we send out this update so that people know about it. But of course, with our neighboring countries, we already in the Nile Basin, and we have this Nile Basin initiative, which is an initiative for these shared resources within the Nile, and we're working collaboratively with them, develop systems together so that we have these shared resources. We get the best use of it, through this sharing of knowledge. And the Nile Basin Initiative Secretariat in Entebbe and Ethiopia, they do a lot of sharing of information, especially the flood forecasting in the Eastern Nile and then the equatorial lakes. So we share all this. On the other side, of course, we know our immediate upstream country, Uganda, in cases where there are really extreme events really seen, typically in 2020 and 2024, the Minister of Water and Environment really had to notify not only South Sudan, but the communities downstream that, they were increasing, the releases from the oil falls dam. So in essence, letting us know instead of us being ambushed by, unexpected high flow. So these initiatives are already on the ground. I know it's a matter of formalizing it so that it may become a commission, but these are very high-level discussions. So, but at least, there's that collaborative sharing of information and data. So we will move it, I know the idea is to move it, to make it formal so that we don't only share information when there is danger coming, but, throughout also. I think these are some of the discussions which are ongoing. And I think through the Nile Basin and through, managing these waters collaboratively with the neighboring countries, I think, because the solution for managing water resources may not be only in South Sudan, it may be upstream of the location which is affected by these disasters. So these are the discussions. I know they will be formalized. Thank you.
Thank you for the very informative presentations on South Sudan's project. I'm Tomoyuki Okada. I work for the International Center for Water Hazard and Risk Management based in Japan. And we are currently supporting the South Sudan's knowledge exchange project with Japan, supported by the World Bank. And we are simulating some flood and drought impact in South Sudan and facing some challenges such as limited data observation. And I saw some slides showing infrastructure, culvert, and levees. I think to design such infrastructure, the design should be based on some analysis. And I'd like to know if this project had some similar difficulty in collecting data or simulating impact on flood and how to solve such challenges. If you have such lessons, we'd like to hear. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so the first objective of the project that we did was basically collecting knowledge and doing the research. Unfortunately, after the independence of South Sudan from Sudan, most of the data was left in Khartoum. So the challenge we had, there was some data. It's not that we didn't have data, but it was not enough to design a project of this magnitude and design infrastructure. So we had our own research team that was hired for this project, which was working with the Dutch embassy before this project even started, actually. And so they did the data collection, and they did the models in terms of what was the requirement in terms of both hydrological and hydrology to ensure that the infrastructure that we are putting in for the phase one is capable of handling the loads or the hydrological pressure going forward. But let me also give Charles, and by the way, just with this project and the overall project that has been done under Nile Basin, there are hydrological telemetric stations have been established across the country.
Thank you for this question. The issue of the data, yes, it's a reality on the ground. One thing is, okay, much, as he said, some of our data has not been retrieved from Sudan, which is true, but there was a gap in the monitoring between the year 1983 up to almost 2007. So basically within this period, there was nobody going to the ground to do some monitoring. So let us really, it is not that we did not want to go, but this is the period when the country was in conflict. So ideally that was not a very good time for everybody to go and carry out the normal monitoring. Also during this time, some of the infrastructure got damaged. So hence, we could not, monitor all this, but there is this historic data coupled with the knowledge, the traditional knowledge, and also IOM started collecting, data. We installed a monitoring station in Bor, and it's from this data that, they complemented, their modeling, and then also validated by the traditional knowledge. So similarly, if you're going to model, issues of what happened between 80s and 2000, really you'll have this issue of the data gap. But now we are already, moving forward the hydrological monitoring, thanks to the Nile Basin Initiative. With very good support, we have managed to put some 5 automatic stations, but from 2023, this is still very young stations. We may not project really it may not really give us very good data, but it's better than nothing. Now we are also doing the optimization of the hydrometric network. We want to know what is the optimum hydrological network that is really necessary for monitoring. One key thing I should bring to you is that, the section of the Nile from Nimule up to Reng is really, we call it a gray area in the Nile Basin because there is no enough data to simulate what will be the hydrological issues. And you should know that this is also where the Sud wetland is, and there has been no monitoring. There are a lot of studies done from space, but validating it becomes a little challenge. So we hope, this optimized network, though we do not have the money to implement all, the monitoring network. Of course, this calls for, intervention support so that we at least have the minimum monitoring network for a couple of years so that we can use that ground measurements to validate our models and then even to calibrate with the satellite data sets and other things. But one innovation which they have brought forward is, the use of the satellite data sets, to, project what should have been the hydrological regime during this time when there was no ground measurement. So, of course, a lot of, errors here and there, but I think it helped also. So, thank you very much. This is what I can say.
If I may just add.
Yeah, please, go ahead.
Well, because I was so close to the program, so that makes me every now and then to come out. And it was a Dutch company, Mott MacDonald, which has done quite considerable technical work before, say remote sensing, for instance, other work as well. So that can be maybe JICA could be informed about it, so that may be worthwhile. Secondly, also I would like to not to create a feel-good atmosphere here, but commend the Ministry of Water, because I can remember some 10, 15 years ago, it could be very difficult to get any information from the Ministry of Water about discharges and so on. And these days, no matter, as Charles so well explained to us, It's just not very easy. But if you want a meeting with the ministry on discharges, it's there within a week, and you get what is available. So I think the ministry is also, like you explained, with all of the stakeholder work that you're doing, very responsive to this program as well. Thank you.
Okay. I have something that I need to ask everyone who's sitting here. So we talked about a postgraduate diploma, yeah, and disaster risk management and sustainable development. The part I did not mention, I was waiting for you to see some photos of how the area really looks like. So we're talking about an area that, if you saw in most of the photos, you don't see any buildings around, yeah? So it's just a snapshot on how the town looks like. When we talk about education programs in 2025, we think about where is my tablet, where is my laptop, what kind of technology I'm using, where is my Zoom link, where is AI to help me, right? So the question to you is, how do you think educational programs focused on disaster risk management and climate change can be delivered in a conflict-affected, high vulnerable, with zero resources areas? Because we tried it, and I don't know how we did it, but we did it. But this is my question to you. How do you imagine that if you have some students today in 2025, you need to teach them or tell them a piece of information, but the maximum they can do is meet you under a tree? What will you do? How do you share knowledge? So I would like to hear from your experience, what you saw around the world. How do you think knowledge sharing, if we, in this age, remove technologies, put it all on side, and say we want to continue our education, and we want people to be knowledgeable, what do you think can be done? There. This is not going to be my only question, so.
So I am representing DAN Foundation from India. So we have implemented DRR in some of the states in India, flood affected states. And we have also developed such programs for the local youth volunteers. And one practice which we follow is like, we bring the community as the teacher. We develop the program with the community itself, and the local knowledge which you are building on is the base for the academics also. And they become the teachers, and the professionals collaboratively work with these local leaders who have this indigenous knowledge, and they collaboratively develop the curriculum. And the sessions were completely handled by these local leaders and also local technicians. That's how we have developed the program, and it has been implemented in the villages itself. But the issue is sustaining these volunteers in the economic growth of the country is very difficult. It's really challenging. Because the most of the knowledge the community gained is through a long period. But the information which we are giving is not an experience of the youth. Yeah. It's just a knowledge of the youth. It has a vast difference between the experience and the knowledge. Thank you.
Up there.
Thank you. Well, in my case, I'm a master's student at Wageningen University in the Netherlands, and I did my thesis with a project in that sub-Saharan Africa. The project is called Safe for All, and I recently saw that they are using music to teach children. So I think that that's also a nice and very engaging way to share knowledge as well. Just wanted to share.
Yeah. I still want to hear a lot of people talking, but I will ask Majok to explain a bit how was it done in Bor. He was actually one of the professors who delivered some of the curriculums with zero internet for 9 months. So, yeah.
Thank you very much, Wafa, for the question. I think for us, you know, I have to tell you a background of how I came to be teaching. Actually, I escaped Bor in 1991 because of conflict, and then I became a refugee in Kenya. That's where I actually obtained most of my education. Then when I came back, I got that we are establishing a university. And in this university, we do not have the necessary infrastructure to be able to maybe, starting from classroom, the technology, decent classes, and all this, it is actually absent. And you know, this is our country. We cannot just throw it down and say, maybe we should transfer everybody to go and acquire education elsewhere. So to be brief, actually, what we design as a university, we call ourselves a university, although we are challenged by the infrastructure. We have a vast land, but limited infrastructure. So what we did was that we came to agree that a quality of education is not infrastructure, but it is the skill that is imparted on the learner. So what we did was we actually did screening to see that these students, they qualify from the high school they come from. And then once they reach the university, then what we did is we make sure that these students are given practical skills. Like, for example, we give them practical skills in agriculture. In agriculture, you don't need those high precise agricultural technologies in order for them to start doing agriculture. Of course, they can actually learn that later in life. But the basic skill of land preparation, all this you can actually do, even if it is under a tree. But we are not, don't perceive that we are under a tree. We are not under a tree, but we just lack much infrastructure to be at the level of international universities or national universities. So the first aspect is the quality of the teaching, the skills, if they are able to do. And in this postgraduate program, our students, they don't spend most of their time in sitting in class. We actually take them out for case studies. We take them to the front where the communities, if you saw the picture, where the communities are actually building dikes and where the communities are sitting to discuss water problems, like water conflicts. So these students actually get real first-hand information on what needs to be done and what the problems are. And then they would be able to think through and find where do they actually fit, where they should come and fill in the gap. Some of them, some of these students that you see, some of them are facing the problem of flood themselves. So they have first-hand experience. And then some of their families were being told some time back to leave where they are actually living because it is perceived from many decades that this place is going to be always a place for water to run through. So that is a waterway. But people came and blocked the waters, and they bring, when you see the people running, trucks running all around, trying to bring soil and put it in the waterways. But in the end of the day, water wins. So people will be watched, and they'll move. And students now, they have already started their advocacy, and they're telling the communities to immediately leave these waterways and maybe move further away from the Nile. Because no matter what type of dike you will be building, still water will always have the last authority. And this is what the community are beginning to understand now. And I think these guys are efficient. With the 45 that we have now as a student, I can tell you that not even a single one of them is struggling to find a job. Already they are doing some work. They're working with agencies. Others are working for the government, of which they are actually part of the committees, which are actually trying to work with the IOM and the partners. So to me, I think I will not underrate these students saying that they might have learned under the trees, but I think the quality of the information they have is sufficient, and I can guarantee that they are actually up to the task. The only challenge now is we will need to build on the number of people who will be able to respond to the flood problem, because this problem of flood is not going away soon, no matter when we put, because with the climate change, it is very difficult for you to say that you have already solved the problem of flood by building culverts and this. So this is a real thing that need to be improved, and it needs a lot of fine-tuning. So that's what I can say on my side. So there are two answers to that. One, the quality of the program that you are actually giving. And then secondly, you need these students to be able to understand the first-hand information and experience so that they will be able to be the front line team to respond to disasters and floods. So that's what I can say for me. I don't know whether it answers your question, but that's the little I can actually say. Thank you.
Any comments? Or should I move to... Yeah.
So I'm interested in knowing that how far the community has been involved in developing this program, this master's program.
Yeah, thank you very much. For now, the group that we are about to graduate on 16th of September, they are postgraduate diploma programs. So their basic education or their basic degree come from various fields: engineering, social work, economics, environment, agriculture, and stuff. And now what brings them together as a unit is the disaster risk management, particularly with the flood. So what I can say is that in the design of this program is that first of all, Bor, or the people of Bor, they already have their own basic level of understanding about floods before you bring in any science. And I can cite you a few examples. One of them is that from our great-grandparents who actually live next to the Nile, they first understand that the community has got a name, and the name is that we call them river lakes Nilot. So they will always live next to the lakes, next to the river, no matter what threat is actually facing them. That's the first thing. That is because it has got an attachment to their livelihoods, the way of life. Like, for example, when they see that it is raining and rain is too much, they know that their homes will be at risk, but again, their livelihood will be boosted up because they will get the fish from the river. So they will always not leave. And then in dry seasons, in Bor, actually, the area is flat and it can actually get dry, cracking soil, and water will be beyond reach. Even if you dig, you won't find it. So the main source of water for both people, livestock, and even their crops, it is only the Nile. So you see, these are the two aspects that you need to understand. So they will never, by any means, leave the Nile. They will always be there and face the disaster. So now what do we do? Is that these people, they have got ways which they know. One is that, for example, they will be looking at the behavior of insects. And there is this insect they call is a kind of a red ant, which come from the river. So they will actually be monitoring when this red ant is actually migrating from away from the source of water. Immediately they know that they need to do something, and immediately the owners of the houses will begin to leave this house, and then they go and build elsewhere. That's first thing, because they know the flood that is about to come, it will be beyond dike building and will be beyond any type of work that you will do. And there are certain aspects like there is a migration of birds, and I will cite many examples. Like, for example, when they begin to see increase in the number of snakes coming from the sad wetland, moving outside, then they know actually river is overflowing. Sometimes increase in water weeds. They will see like hundreds of kilometers from Bor, which is in Juba. When they see that the waters are no longer clear, it's carrying a lot of green bushy materials inside the Nile, they will know that actually flood is coming. And then from there, they will begin to take precautions. And some of them are sometimes building dikes. They may decide to migrate and do many things. But all in all, what is our role as a university is that we want to make sure that we build on what they already know in order for them to be able to stay, so that we don't actually disrupt their livelihood and whatever sentimental attachment they have to the Nile. So that is why actually this program is a call from them that, look here, if you want to help us, don't start telling us that you will move us away from the Nile, but instead help us to live next to the Nile. That's the message they actually give, and that's how they participate in the design of this program. That's how IOM came in with the building of the culverts to make sure that this water is channeled. And then they actually pointed out that at times water will be from the community going to the Nile. But there are certain times in a year whereby water will come out from the Nile into the communities. And this is where science is actually helping. So from there now, you see the building of these dikes, which actually only allow water to move out, but does not allow another additional water to come in. So I don't know how it is called, gated culverts? Or what?
Gated.
Yes, gated culverts. The technicians knows it well. So gated culverts. So this is knowledge, this is an information which actually they gave to the technical designers, and the designers actually worked on it. That's what I can say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. I think I'm running out of time. I will ask one simple question. I have a lot of questions, so I'm trying to choose the best question. Yeah. So, what do you think of the post-humanitarian phase follow-up? So you can notice that mainly, we talked a lot about needing the resources, yeah? And unfortunately, the undersecretary worked out. I cannot find them, but this question will be for him. Yeah, so think about the post-humanitarian. In a context like South Sudan, I'm sure if you're not involved in a context like South Sudan, you know about it, or you know about a lot of countries that are in a continuous conflict, yeah? And you know the humanitarian response and the effect of the humanitarian response all around the world. But what will happen to these communities post-humanitarian? So humanitarians have to leave at some point. There is always the next emergency, the next conflict, and the next response. So once we look at an area like Bor, and we look at a country like South Sudan, what do you think the next step for these communities? Who would like to start? Huh? Very hard question. Looks like it's very hard question, yeah? Even to us. Ah, come on. Thank you.
The good thing is that you already have the community engagement. I think a key question is how do you maintain the momentum that you've created now to engage them in the long run, to integrate all the knowledge developed by the different bodies into something they can access later on or get back to in case they're stuck with something, and to pass on the knowledge to the next generation as well. So I think it's key to maintain the meetings and integrate the knowledge that is being developed along the way.
Can I also try to answer and then I get insurance?
Go ahead.
I think one of the lesson learned for myself, and this was taught long time back in my career, somebody asked a question, when does the development start, or when do we start the recovery? And they said 0 hours of the disaster. And I was surprised, how do you start it? You were still responding. They said, you need to think then. So I remember my colleague, or a very dear colleague that we had in Netherlands Embassy, Michelle. So we were doing response, and Michelle, before going on R&R, just called me and he said, I want to come and see you. I said, sure, come. So we both had a chat of 1 hour. And the question was, what do we see in the future of Bor, right? And we were trying to define that we cannot let happen to the people of Bor what is happening across South Sudan. We don't want another IDP camp. We don't want to put a Band-Aid on how to deal with it because there is a humanitarian operation going in the country. And there was also a very traditional or a historical link between the Netherlands and the people of Bor and across South Sudan, of course. They have been building different infrastructure in 80s, I think, and 70s. There has been exchanges and all that. So based on those two thoughts and the effort that the community put, if you can harness it then and there, when they say, hit the iron when it's hot, you can generate enough momentum to go beyond the humanitarian. But if you do not think of that in the very few, let's say, maximum 90 days of a crisis, it's very hard to attract a post or vision a post-crisis recovery process. Charles, over to you.
Yes, Honorable Undersecretary. We, all of us in the room, are being challenged by a question from WAFA saying that, well, after these humanitarian actions by IOM, what else can we do? Should we also wait for another disaster and begin calling for, humanitarian response and others? So, in essence, we're really putting our ideas together. But of course, I know you will come in. We'll also try to give my insight into what else do we need to do. I'm not really from the disaster risk background or disaster management background, but I also look at water for disaster risk management, because all we are talking about is really created because of water. When it is too much, that's when we see this flooding coming in. When it is not there, we talk about the droughts. So the whole cycle of the disaster risk management really starting from, triggers or other things, and then during the floods and after, and then what else do we do? As governments, normally really this kind of firefighting is not what we want, because it affects the development, it affects the economy of the country. So we are even challenged after 2020, 2021, 2022, there started coming in questions, from the real people on the ground. How long are we going to be displaced, sent away, and also after the flood goes, we come back and then wait for another? These questions started coming to the ministry. So in essence, all along the ministry is looking at, long-term plans of how to manage these floods, not really looking at it as a danger, but also harnessing it. So in essence, we are not looking at responding to floods or other things, but managing it so that to minimize on the damages and the impacts, meanwhile harnessing on the benefits that are brought about by the floods. One key thing which post-flood, we have seen a lot of investment put in place, a lot of culverts put in place. Really, the key thing is this 11 million, if we cannot sustain it, still we will have to come back to the same cycle. So most important thing which the ministry has seen is, investing in the human capital. There have been assessments recently done for the water sector in the ministry. Yep. It is found out that two, one is by the WMO and one done currently by the ministry. It's not finalized, but almost. Really, there's critical gap in the water professionals. This is a big issue. I personally have been trained, in the Netherlands, maybe in Uganda, and very few really are having this kind of training. The rest of the people, if you don't have this kind of training from outside, you may not know about water, simply because there has been no dedicated, institute to train the water professionals. So I know Honorable will talk much about it really, and we see this is the direction where we need to move. For sustainability of all these issues, we need to invest in the human capital, human professionals. Yep. That's why we say, why should we only send one person, either to Uganda, to Netherlands, to come back to South Sudan, will he really cover the 650,000 square kilometers? Really, this is the idea where, at the moment, there's this initiative of establishing a National Water Institute. I know Honorable will talk much about it. So just I want to highlight that, you know, the most important thing, we need the capital, the human capital, you know, to manage all these investments. So thank you very much. Sorry.
Thank you.
To give some time.
I'm sorry, I think I will end the session with a very interesting question that you will all take home with you. I'm running out of time. I have 2 minutes. I will hand over to Majok for exactly 30 seconds. I'm counting, yeah? And then we will close the session. Yeah, I will give to him. That's
yeah,
why
thank you. Thank you very much. I'm sorry actually to come in. What I wanted to say is a response on this interesting question, which is post-humanitarian Bor or post-humanitarian South Sudan. What will be the implications? To me, I think for us, we have a very clear case in Bor where we have seen people in Bor actually somehow they were able to improve the level of resilience, especially post-humanitarian. Like, for example, I can tell you that when WFP food is stopped, many people actually, more than 20% actually, started to practice agriculture because they see now there's not going to be real food that is coming. That is one of the things, you see. But now, the way to do it is this. One way to do it is we have to improve institutional capacity. So instead of giving this aid directly, it will be given to institutional capacity. You need to develop institutions like ministries, cooperatives, give them skills. And then at the level of individuals at the same time, you really need to support individual training. Like, for example, we can say that this program of IOM is already a success. For me, I don't count it as one of the things that will fail post-humanitarian. It's already a success because I come from Bor, I'm a River Lake Nilot, and I can see that my community is definitely going to is going to benefit from the water infrastructure, you see. So they are not longer going to be in the same level of threat. And in addition to that, myself, I'm a product of a joint regional master program under the Dutch government.
Thank you.
For disaster risk management. So already now we are already trained, and we are already now into the program we are actually teaching. So that's what I can say. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Honorable Undersecretary.
Thank you. I can see time is not our friend. I'm going to actually echo what has been mentioned by Mr. Koboji on area of what is the next plan. The next plan, as the Minister of Water, Resource and Irrigation, is that we have come up with, we have conceived the idea of establishing a National Water Institute. For us to incorporate traditional theories with the modern theories and technology, it requires an institute which can really harness and develop some theories which can be used to mitigate the prevailing water disaster in the country, and part of it, drought. That's the answer I can give. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you everyone. We have some printouts and some fact sheets here. If you're interested to know more, you can just grab one on your way out. I'm sorry I didn't manage to keep the time, but thank you so much, and I hope this was interesting for you. Thank you.